Good morning, everyone. Kelly Nelson. I'm back here today with my good friend and mortgage specialist, Keith Murphy with Essex Mortgage.
Good morning, Kelly. How
Good
are you
morning.
this beautiful Saturday?
Yes, it's a lovely day. Couldn't ask for any better place to live in a lot of ways than Southern California, which is why so many people want to live here. Even though we do have a lot of people moving out, we still have a lot of people moving in. So in thinking about that, getting right to it, we wanted to talk about some of the things that people need to think about and evaluate when they're looking to buy, and some of the things that we counsel people about. But having gone through this experience personally, particularly yourself, during this time, and some of the financial decisions each of us have made, and how we are very much understanding of the emotions and the dynamic that needs to go into making those final decisions, whether or not to buy, whether or not to sell. So Keith, I'd like to just jump right in and have you tell us a little bit about what your experience and what your situation was and what decisions you made.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. And I'll just start the conversation by saying this was a very enlightening personal process for me. So here's the backstory. My wife and I live in a nice house that we love, and we've been working very diligently to get the debt paid down to zero. So we're very close to being debt-free on our home, which is one of my goals and one of the things that I preach to my clients. Like, you need to have a plan to get out of debt so that you're not paying your hard-earned money to someone else in the form of interest. So we're in that place, and we had bought the property a long time ago, and so our tax basis is low. And we had entertained a few times, maybe for different personal reasons, lifestyle, etc. Maybe selling and buying something else, or maybe renting out the home that we have been in and buying something else. But every time I, looked at the numbers, I got scared and decided, you know what, we're fortunate, let's just stay put. So long story short is, there was a property in my neighborhood that I've had my eye on for quite some time, and it was a long shot, but I had always told the owner, if you ever decide you're going to sell, I would want to talk to you before you decide to put it on the market. Maybe we can make a deal. And I'm friends with him, so he said, sure. And for 14, 15 years, we've had this conversation. Up until a few months ago, he knocked on my door and said, guess what? Because of this, and that reason, we're going to be selling. Are you still interested in talking? So this thing was kind of thrust upon us.
Right.
And I went through a wave of emotions, which I'm going to explain here in a second. But here's how things got sort of interesting, at least for me. As a mortgage professional, I'm very, very passionate on some of the key reasons why someone would own versus rent. And I'm just going to highlight on a couple of them, because those same reasons for buying kind of backfired on me when the fear kicked in. So for instance, if some client would say, listen, we're renting right now, do you think it would be wise to buy? I'm like, well, let's take a look at some numbers. Mortgage is about financial planning. It's about number crunching. Let's let the math figure out this decision for us. So let's look at what you're paying in rent, and let's look at what that annual cost or loss is, because you're not getting any of that capital back. So if you're spending $2,000 a month on rent, that's $24,000 a year in capital gone. $3,000 a month in rent, that's $36,000 a year in capital gone. And any investment that you're losing $24,000, $36,000 a year on, you're going to run to the hills away from, right? You bought Apple stock and it went down $36,000, you're probably going to get out of it. So really looking at rent loss, and then looking at rent inflation. How fast is that cost or loss increasing year over year? And in Southern California, due to the power of compounding inflation, rents are doubling about every 12 to 15 years. So you can pretty much go to any neighborhood and go back in time and do some research, and you could see that I'm right. About every 12 to 15 years, that rent for that particular unit, whatever it is going to double. So just that alone. Then when you're owning, you've got a fixed payment, so you're not going to be the victim of rent inflation. You're not just paying a bank every month for your house. You're actually getting money back in the form of principal reduction. I call it forced savings. So you're paying down your debt every month. You're building a financial future for yourself versus when you're renting, you're just losing money. Then you've got the tax benefits and all the other good things that go along with home ownership, like the lifestyle and the convenience of being able to go, in your robe on Sunday morning and drink coffee and sit in your own backyard. Like, there's an intangible benefit to home ownership that I preach about that you can't get away from. Well, now,
I'll tell you two things. When I bought my first condo, one thing was I get to paint the walls without asking permission, and I have my own laundry room. And I just hugged my washer and dryer when it got brought in. Of course, I was a mom with little kids at that time too.
And when we had our first child, we were living in a rental in an apartment community. And, we would on the weekends take our first son then down to the park, and we would use the community pool and swing set. And, fast forward when we moved into our first home, which isn't the property I'm talking about now, but when we moved into our first home, there was something very different and special about spending time watching my son run through the sprinkler on a summer day in my backyard, or spending those Sunday afternoons reading the paper, watching him play with his, dump truck in the little dirt area. It's just different. And I try to explain that to clients, like home ownership, emotionally, it's just different, and it makes life better. In the crazy world we live in, having a sanctuary that you can call your own, there's an intangible that you can't quantify, you can't add to the bottom line or profit and loss statement when you're crunching numbers on home ownership. And I remind clients of that. So the point of this story is I found myself in the same shoes as my clients for the first time in a long time when my neighbor knocks on my door and goes, "We're selling. You've been mentioning for 14 years you wanted to buy it." Well, all those fears kicked in.
And that was on what day? What was the date? Do you remember?
Well, he knocked on our door on January 27th. We came to an agreement literally within like 48 hours. And then we went into escrow. And before that happened though, I spent 48 hours of soul searching and really looking at, do we really want to go backwards? That's how I was looking at it. Do we really want to go into debt again? Because this house is going to be more than the one we're in.
Right.
And we had a plan and we're on track to pay it off. Now we're also going to be putting ourselves back on that timeline as far as how long we owe somebody else money. We're going to increase our property tax basis because the property's taxes are going to be based on today's value and price, not what we paid for our current or previous home. And I know all these things, like interest rates are at historical lows. The cost basis, which is the interest on the purchase price, is going to be lower today than any other time in the future. So forget where prices are going, Keith. You're going to be able to lock in the lowest cost basis, which is the price and overall interest you pay. So I'm like, mathematically, it makes sense. Lifestyle and quality of life wise, it makes sense.
You already knew what it was.
Yeah. And yet that ego that tries to protect you, that monkey brain that defies logic, was still trying to talk me out of doing what I knew mathematically and emotionally and quality of life wise was in our best interest. And it was something we could afford easily and something that we should do for the quality of our life. And if anything, these current days and times we're living in have taught me to stop planning so much, not to stop planning so much for the future and not forget to live for today, because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So, fast forward, we're in the property now. This is my home office in our new home.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we love it. Like every day I wake up and I pinch myself. It's a perfect home for us. We love it. The other home has since been sold, and I'm now just reflecting, I guess, in this video. I'm reflecting in what was I thinking? What was I so afraid of? And here's the crux of it. When I meet and consult with clients and I go through all the benefits, short and long-term financial benefits of home ownership, especially today, and then they come back and say, gosh, it all makes sense, Keith, but we're just going to wait. Prior to all this happening, I'm like, wait for what? I don't understand what's holding them out. And I'll ask them directly, like, what is it that you're afraid of? What's holding you back? What questions haven't I answered? And it usually comes down to, it just doesn't feel right. We're just going to wait a little bit longer. And I'm like, okay, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. There's no pressure. But if you miss out on these low rates, it's going to cost you. And I hate to see it cost you more when you could cost you less today. So do it today. And I couldn't figure out why they wouldn't. Now I know.
Right.
Being put back in the buyer's shoes and being in this market and current environment really taught me a lesson that, the ego and our belief system and our past experiences really can wreak havoc on logic and making the right decisions. And I learned a lot about myself and how to now combat that monkey in my brain, because at the end of the day, we made a great financial decision, a great investment, not only financially, but, with the quality of our life. So I encourage others who might be in that same, why in the road? Do I rent? Do I buy? Do I upgrade now or do I not? Do I downsize now or do I not? It should all come down to, what are your life goals? What are your long-term financial plans? And then once we know what the bullseye that you're trying to hit looks like, let's put pen to paper. Let's get the spreadsheet out. Let's do math and let's figure it out and stick with that. Stick with the facts, stick with logic, and then you'll make good decisions more often than not versus the emotional. But it was enlightening to see how the emotion takes over the logic.
Well, and that's what we do when we purchase anything. We make that purchase emotionally, and then we justify it with logic. So in what I love about working with you is that you do drill down on the numbers. I'm a math nerd myself. My mom always used to say, that's the beauty of math. Math doesn't lie. It's either a good decision or it's not. And you can pencil it out, and then you make the best decision that you can at the time with all of the facts that you have, as well as looking at where is it going to take us? What is that going to do for our life? Is it going to be a home that's in the school district that's going to be great for our kids? Yes, we might be spending more, but we're looking at that as an investment in our children. So there are all kinds of things to take into consideration. And I think that, being able to connect with the emotions that people are feeling so that, you can have that insight into understanding is able, it puts you it gives you that insight to be able to say, look, I totally get where you're coming from. And I felt the same way. And you may want to consider this before you make that decision to just close the door on buying. Let's really drill down on the numbers and where you see yourselves in 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So I think that that's an important part. We can only make the best decision that we can in the moment with the facts that we have at hand. So that's where we go, right?
And we slay that monkey, because I'm in agreement with you, and that's why I do what I do. I love numbers. I love helping people figure out their financial best options and how to structure things to meet their short and long-term financial goals. And it is black and white, just like your mom said. I don't like gray. I like certainty. We're either making good decisions or making not so good decisions. And numbers don't lie, like your mom said. But it was again interesting, because I did the same, almost Ben Franklin. Here's all the pros, here's all the cons, here's the math. And this is a no-brainer decision. If you think about my previous home, it was something as simple as, okay, I know math, 2 + 2 = 4. So if you keep on doing what you're doing, you're going to go from 2 to 4. However, on the other side of the ledger, when I ran all the numbers, it's going to be something more like, well, we're going to go from 4 + 4 to 8. So at the end of the same day, do you want to have 4 or do you want to have 8? And to meet my financial goals, I want the 8, and I want the nicer property, and I want to have the better quality of life. So it all made sense. And then as soon as I figured it all out, like, this is a no-brainer, we need to do it, I would walk away from the logic, the black and the white, and then that monkey would kick in again and go, but what about this? And what about that? I'm like, that's not part of the equation. But what if it was a part of the equation? But it's not, and it was messing with me. And
Yes.
I just wanted to share this story with you and with your clients and anybody else that's watching this weekend, that, you know, we're all human and we all make decisions, like you said, the same way, emotionally, but based on logic. But sometimes that emotion overrides, and when it does, then I think you end up making bad decisions. At least I could have passed on this,
Right.
and it would not have been the right thing to do. We did the right thing.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting in your particular situation, I just know a little bit more about, what you've shared with me, was that you purchased a home right in the same neighborhood, right across the street, and yet you were able to look at, okay, if I look at where I purchased my home, the location of my home backs to a busy street, and this home backs to a view. And so over time, what home was going to continue to keep its value? The home that you purchased, the new home.
Yes.
That's going to always be more desirable to have that peace and quiet. So you sold a home that maybe was ultimately, in the scheme of things, comparing those two homes, maybe a little less desirable, but in a time where prices are up, your equity is there, your equity was able to springboard you into the next property, which was so much more desirable for you and your family. Great location, great neighborhood, proximity to both of your offices for you and your wife, proximity to the colleges for the kids, and great neighborhood, and you love all your neighbors, you're happy there. So kind of came down to probably a why not, ultimately.
Yeah.
After you look at the math. It makes sense, totally makes sense.
And everything you just said is pretty much exactly what we analyzed. And I know you know some of that because I shared it with you, but I'm a numbers guy. So at the end of the day, it's like, here's our timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be at the end of that road with $4 in your hand or $8 in your hand,
Right.
with everything else being equal? And I went, wait a minute, everything else is not equal, because now we have the view and we have a better quality of life, which you cannot quantify. There's no equation on that. But at the end of the day, I've got a better quality of life, and I'm going to end up with 8 versus 4. So it's a great decision, and I'm very comfortable with it now. But
Right.
I definitely went through some turmoil on the front end. And so yeah, I understand what your clients and first-time buyers and move-up buyers and relocation folks are thinking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just helps me and you be better professionals and advocates for our clients, because we can truly understand what they're thinking and what's holding them back. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And if I was just going to share briefly for us personally, we've been in the same home for 25 years. I think you were at your former home 20 plus years, right?
Yep, right. Actually, 19 years.
Okay. So we've been here for 25 years, and we've seen the turnover in the neighborhood, and it's back to a lot of young families with a lot of children. And we absolutely love that. I've always told Glen, no matter where we live, I always want to live in a neighborhood that is, families. And I tease him and I tell him, because I need those young, strapping young men with strong backs to move a piece of furniture for me when I'm an old lady. But so for us, we've decided to make some improvements in our backyard. We're considering putting in a pool, and we do live next to a street that has over time become busier and busier. We love our house, we love our yard, so we thought, how can we improve upon this? So where we're going to locate the pool is going to have some waterfalls that are going to help mitigate some of that traffic noise. So in the long run, is it the ideal location? If I had to do it all over again, would I have purchased this home in this neighborhood, knowing what I know now? Probably not, but I've been here. It's a great neighborhood. I have wonderful neighbors and love, all these little kids in my neighborhood coming over to play at my house. And so why not make it, even better, as long as I plan to be here. So that's what we're looking at doing, and drilling down on some of the numbers, drilling down on the math is our next part of that.
Well, make sure when you're doing this improvement, it's a pool, right? Make sure it's a big pool, because all those kids out front that are riding their bikes and whatnot, when they find out that Kelly Nelson and Glen Nelson have a pool, they're going to be knocking on the door on those hot summer days wanting to go swimming.
Yes, well, we actually already took that into consideration, and the depth of the pool, yeah, and the reef, Baja step area are going to, the reef is going to be huge, because I want the kids to be able to, if they want to come over and play, there's a safe place for little ones to play, and their parents to come and hang out if they want to. And then the lap pool portion is not going to be any deeper than 4 feet. So kids can come over if they, got somebody on the swim team at the local school, they can come over and swim laps in our pool if they want to. So
what's your favorite mortgage lender? I'll grab my swimsuit too.
Okay. Well, Keith, I really appreciate you sharing your personal story today. And I know it was a big decision that you and your wife had to make together, but for the sake of your family, it sounds like it came through, and you're really happy in your new home, and you put another property on the market for another homeowner to be able to buy. And I'm sure your new neighbors are thrilled to be in that neighborhood.
They actually have been moving in slowly, but the big move in was yesterday. The big Mayflower truck and everything. And they have kids, younger kids, and the oldest, I believe, who looks to be about 11 or 12, came and knocked on my door yesterday. So I went over and met the family, for the first time, and wonderful people. They had a issue figuring out the lock on a back door, so I went over there to help them out. But yeah, they're here, and it was actually really gratifying to also see that, like, this property that I love. It was actually a whole nother story and video, but the emotion that goes with selling your sanctuary that you've been living in for literally 19 years, to sell it and give it to someone else it was a little harder than I thought it was going to be honest with you. Maybe I'm, just sappy guy or whatnot, but I'm glad now that it went to some great people, a nice family, and they're going to get the same enjoyment out of it with their kids that we did. And it all worked out for the end, and I'm hoping this story resonates with others who might be on the fence and find themselves, going back and forth, talking themselves into and out of what their plans may or may not be. And hopefully the story can help them, because it's even professionals that do this every day run into the same hurdles, and if they need help, they can reach out to us, and we can help walk them through at least the logic part and the numbers part, so they've got somebody else helping them that is an advocate for them and helps them make the right decision for themselves.
Right. And for me personally, I always appreciate that trust that someone places in me to walk them through that buying process or selling process, and understands and can, help them navigate through those waters, both the emotions of it and, how do I do all of this, and in what kind of a time frame, and it just can seem overwhelming, but it's like, what, we're going to get through it together, and everything's going to work out, and you're not in this alone. So I think just knowing that they have, not just an advocate, but a partner to navigate through the transaction and the move out, the move in, all of that is beneficial, and it's a part of my job that I really truly enjoy, is that personal connection and that relationship.
And your clients speak to that, because for everyone that I'm able to work with as well, they always say, my goodness, like, you can really tell that Kelly has a servant's heart, and she truly cares about us, not about what might benefit her should a property sell or if we buy, but 100% based upon what's best for us and our family. And everybody says the same, pretty much same message. So I know it to be true.
Well, thank you, Keith. It chokes me up to hear you say that. I have met so many great people in this business, and I'm so grateful for the friendships that I have developed. It's been an amazing career choice for me. I couldn't even imagine myself doing anything else, So
well,
thank you.
You're making me emotional, and Yeah, I feel the same way. Like this is one of those jobs. It's not for everybody, that's for sure.
Mhm.
But for the people who have the God-given skills to, be good at what we do, same thing. I can't think of any other career. And before I got into this business 25, 26 years ago, I did a
Mhm.
lot of research and I saw one constant. Lots of testimonials from top producers in the mortgage and real estate world. And I saw a common theme, which was what you just said. Like, I couldn't think of doing anything else. Like, these people truly loved what they did. And I thought to myself, the only other time that I've seen people talk about their jobs in that manner is Hollywood actors and actresses and movie stars and rock stars. I'm like, those are the only people I've seen consistently. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky for what I have to do. Most other people are like, man, I have to get up and go do this friggin' job again. And so we're so blessed. We're so lucky that we have the
Yes.
kind of job and career that helps people, and we're passionate and fulfilled. So in any case, Kelly, yes, I have to run.
Okay.
I hope you
Great.
have a great Saturday and a great rest of your Memorial
Thank
Day
you.
weekend. Say hi to Glenn from me and
I will.